and welcome to today's video. My name is Selena Rose, registered holistic nutritionist and wellness consultant at selenarose.ca. Today we are talking about the components of a healthy meal. And in this video, we're going to cover the role of macronutrients in the body. We'll talk about the 5 components of a healthy meal. So the 5 things that you need to have in every single meal that you eat, and do an introduction to living food. Let's jump in. So first we're going to check out our macronutrient chart. You can see that we've got our 3 macronutrients: protein, carbohydrates, and fat at the top, and it explains a little bit about each of these molecules and what they're doing in our bodies. And we want to notice here, first and foremost, that we get more bang for our buck, if you will, more calories from the same amount of fat than we do from carbohydrates or protein. So already off the top, we know that fat is good to include in our meals, but that we need to have less of it than we do protein and carbohydrates. In this video, what I want to focus on is the digestive function of each of these 3 macronutrients. So in our protein category, we can see that protein molecules are complicated to break down. And what that means is that when we eat protein, it's going to take some time for the energy to be released from that food and absorbed as sugar in our bloodstream. So when we eat protein, it helps to maintain our satiety and balance our blood sugar over time. Versus when we eat carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are made up of strings of sugar, so they digest quickly, depending on the complexity of the molecule. You'll recall that we talked about complex carbohydrates versus simple carbohydrates, and our simple ones being things more like honey, syrup, refined grains, bread, pasta, etc., and our complex being things like whole grains that are being eaten whole, or fruits and vegetables, again, eaten in their whole form. Because carbohydrates digest quickly, we want to look at the amount of fiber that they're offering us, because it's the amount of fiber in them that helps to slow down the breakdown of the carbohydrates into their single sugar molecules, which are then going to be absorbed into our bloodstream and raise our blood sugar. In order to start to slow that down, we've got fiber, yes, in the carbohydrates, but if we pair our carbohydrates with protein, because protein's complicated to break down, the carbohydrates need to wait until the protein is broken down to be fully absorbed so that everything gets processed and absorbed together. Compounding on that is adding fat to your meal. So fat breaks down slowly, and it also slows the digestion of other foods in your system. Therefore, when we eat fat, we feel full, we feel satisfied after our meals, and we feel sustained for a longer period of time, because essentially we're having food in our stomachs for longer than we would if, say, we just ate carbohydrates alone. So a quick example of this would be if you're having a snack mid-meal. A lot of people opt for just having a banana, which is totally here in this carbohydrate column. No protein, no fat happening in our banana as a snack. And that's going to go into your body, break down fairly quickly, turn to sugar, and increase your blood sugar level, which is going to give you a boost of energy, followed soon after, once that banana is completely digested and burned off, by a blood sugar low or a blood sugar dip, which your body will interpret as you're feeling hungry again, and then you'll need to eat again. But what would happen if you ate that banana with a handful of nuts? Now we're increasing the fiber content, and we're bringing up the protein content, and also adding some healthy fats, because nuts have both protein, healthy fats, and they have fiber. So then all of a sudden, our banana becomes more of a solid snack because we're pairing it with the nuts. We're getting something from each of the three columns, and it's taking a longer time to break down in our body, therefore keeping us full longer and making us feel satisfied for a longer period of time. That's the main thing I want you to notice about the digestive function of each of our macronutrients. It's important to understand the role that these are playing when they get into your body so that you can eat them with that in mind. If you know that you just need to get your blood sugar up quickly, carbohydrates are going to help with that, but then you want to get yourself to some protein and fat soon thereafter so you don't experience a blood sugar dip. In our next section, we're talking more about the components of a healthy meal. So we talked a little bit about a snack so far, and now I'm talking about more of a meal, like a breakfast, lunch, or dinner, your bigger quantities of food that you're going to be eating throughout the day to help you feel full and satisfied. So here is a chart that explains, we've got 5 things on here that explains what it is that we need to have happening at each of our meals and snacks. Number 1 is protein. We want to aim for 25 grams of protein at each meal, and there's different ways that we can do this. We can do this with vegetarian sources like beans and pairing those with whole grains like rice, millet, or quinoa, or we could go for animal sources like fish, chicken, turkey, lamb, etc. Lots of ways to get our protein. Then we want to be pairing that protein with healthy fats because, again, protein is like a medium slow to digest. Fat is very slow to digest, and that's what we want, just a small amount of fat to increase our satiety after a meal and to help to keep our blood sugar stable. Of course, if we just ate protein and fat together, we would likely be craving sugar afterwards. And the reason for that is because our body primarily runs on carbohydrates. So we want to make sure that we're getting carbohydrates at every meal. So again, we feel satisfied, and we're also giving our body enough fiber and quick fuel to get it going. A lot of our fiber comes from our complex carbohydrates, things like brown rice or things like healthy vegetables that you see here. I would aim to make at least a quarter of your plate complex carbohydrates of some kind. And then the other portion of your plate should include something that's green. And again, we're talking about the meal building components for the best digestion and for optimal energy. And that is definitely going to include greens. Greens are energy powerhouses. They really help us to give us a boost of energy. They're quick to digest, they're fairly easy for our bodies to break down, and they do have fiber in them, which helps us out, and also a lot of antioxidants. The deeper green of the vegetable, the more antioxidants that it provides for you. Greens are also really great because they're alkaline. They, on the pH scale, they're higher on the pH scale, which means that they're going to help alkalize the rest of our body. So while eating things like nuts and like meat, our proteins tend to be a little bit more acidic. By adding some greens into our meal as well, it helps to start to balance that out so that we want to be having more greens than we do protein. A good way to think of this is if you're building your meal on top of a bed of lettuce, let's say, like every meal can become like a salad or have a greens component to it, whether you're having a salad on the side of something that you're eating or you're building your meal on top of a bed of greens. It's a great habit to get into and fantastic for digestion and for your health long term. The alkaline component of the greens then is going to start to balance out what we're taking in that's acidic, like our protein or like some of our complex carbohydrates. And then again, another component that we haven't talked about so far is adding something raw or living to your diet. And the reason why we want to be including something raw or living at every single meal is because they provide enzymes to help break down your food. And they're live. We're eating living foods, unlike when we're eating something that's cooked, vegetables that are cooked. Still great for you, definitely easier to digest than raw vegetables, but they don't have active enzymes in them, and we risk that some of our vitamins and minerals can be either destroyed or displaced during the cooking process, depending on the type of cooking that we're doing. So one way to kind of get around that is to add a little bit of something that's raw or living to your meal. This helps with digestion because our bodies do produce enzymes at each and every meal, but we might not be having enough enzyme production. So having something raw or living is going to contribute those enzymes to your meal. And this can be really simple. It can be as simple as snacking on some celery or carrot sticks while you're making your dinner and then having numbers 1 to 4 covered off in your dinner. Or it could be as simple as adding a handful of sprouts to your meal. Sprouts are fantastic. Number one, they barely taste like anything, which is great if anybody's concerned about their taste. This is something for you to try because it's not offensive at all. Adding sprouts to your meal, again, gives you live enzymes and it gives you active vitamins and minerals. So it's a living food that's contributing live antioxidants to your body, everything that you need to help break down the rest of the food that you're eating. So it's going to help to improve your digestion experience as well as give you the vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants that you need to live and to feel healthy and vital and optimal after you eat. So when we combine numbers 1 through 5 at every single meal, so breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we're going to start to feel better. We're going to start to have more energy, have less food cravings because we'll be feeling satisfied between our meals. Give this a try. Focus on this for the next week, and I want to hear from you in the comments how this is going for you. Definitely write to me. Let me know when you make this change. How is it going? How are you noticing the difference in your energy level? I want to hear from you because this is a really simple thing to be doing, but it's a high impact thing to be doing for improving your diet and improving the way that you feel both after your meal and then also between meals. So in today's video, we have covered off the components of a healthy meal. We talked a little bit together about living foods, and we talked about the role of macronutrients in the body. Start to get your 5 components in every meal that you eat. Focus on breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and let me know how that goes for you. I'm excited to hear how you do.